Welcome to A2Council Update, a recap of the Ann Arbor City Council meeting on July 15, 2024. This meeting included comments and discussion about converting streetlights to LED bulbs, installing more quick-build road projects, amending the zoning for the Southtown development at State and Stimson, creating a business improvement zone at State and Eisenhower, and directing more police attention to hate crimes. This is the voting chart for the council meeting on July 15, 2024. One agenda item was postponed. All other items were approved unanimously. Councilmember Lynn Song was absent. This was her 10th absence since taking office in November 2020. You can find this voting chart and more information about this meeting at a2council.com. Like and subscribe if you would like to see more content like this. The meeting included a presentation from Maura Thompson, Director of the Downtown Development Authority, or DDA.
So general repairs. We take on quite a few general repairs in our system, in the TIF system, and you can see that leaving all of these pavers and indentation in the sidewalk, these are safety issues. They're also just a poor reflection on our downtown. We are also doing sidewalk brick replacement. We're systematically replacing all of the brick that's in the walking zone of the sidewalk. We are trying to replace all of the walking zone that has brick. We also are responsible for landscape maintenance in our project areas. We went in and replaced all of that landscaping, and it looks quite beautiful in that neighborhood right now.
She explained work being done in parking structures.
This year, we're also doing trench drains or installing trench drains in the 4th and Washington Street structure. We're also installing 1.8 acres of deck coating, and that's just in one structure.
After introductory remarks, public comments, and staff explanations, Council discussed agenda items for about 45 minutes. 17 people signed up in advance to offer public comments. 11 people spoke to topics on the agenda. The consent agenda this week included 11 items and expenditures of just over $4.5 million. One item on the consent agenda was removed prior to the meeting, a state grant for $483,000 to support community-based crisis response. This item appeared briefly on two prior council agendas, June 18th and July 1st. For the third time, this item was removed from the agenda in advance of the meeting. 3 items on the consent agenda were pulled for discussion. Council considered a contract for new light poles, fixtures, and luminaires. The purchase was approved unanimously. Council then considered approval of a grant to fund new LED streetlights in collaboration with DTE. The city would enter into a purchase agreement with DTE for up to $1.25 million in order to replace streetlights, converting them to more efficient LED. The grant will provide $980,000, and an additional $270,000 will be allocated from climate action millage funds. Earlier in the evening, public commenters spoke to the issue.
For those that don't know, there's going to be a stipulation of 1 wattage, 58 watts for everywhere. And just around my house, I have 4 lights shining in, 2 into my bedroom and 2 more into my house.
Installing all 58-watt LEDs is going to dramatically overlight the residential areas of Ann Arbor. 58-watt LEDs are typically used for 4-lane highways and roadways, which is really not what our residential areas qualify as.
I urge you instead to consider alternative plans that prioritize using 29-watt, 2700-degree lights.
We also might be able to avoid an expensive mistake if we end up having to retrofit exclusively 58-watt super bright lamps with 29-watt lamps once residents start complaining that the new lights are just too damn bright.
You have to store a bunch of bulbs and you're trying to just go with one kind. I understand that, but it does sound like the 58-watt ones, to put them just everywhere and put them in neighborhoods is going to be a problem.
Lower wattage, less bright in residential areas, and brighter lighting in transit arteries. We can do this. This will save electricity, it will save money, it will be better for wildlife, it will be better for human health.
I was the first Ann Arbor Energy Office Director and ran the office for 20 years. When we installed the new lighting on Stadium, those big poles, that it was all 1 wattage, and you had to go back and change out all the lights outside of the commercial area at, I think, Greenwood Road and beyond, because the people living in the houses there complained so bitterly about the brightness of those lights. The obvious solution, as many people have said, is to use two different bulbs, the 58-watt bulb in the commercial parking lot, high-use intersections, and 29-watt, and whatever.
Brighter is not better. No one here, no one at DTE understands how the retina reacts to a bright light and then darkness and then a bright light.
Commenters referred to the purchase agreement with DTE, which directs that every LED conversion in the city will use the same bulb wattage and brightness, whether located on a high-traffic corridor or within residential neighborhoods. In answer to questions, staff explained that the city would have to hire an additional employee to manage the installation of different bulbs appropriate to different locations.
Staff estimate that more than one full-time equivalent would be needed to cooperatively manage the multiple fixture LED conversions throughout the city. A lighting engineer, either full-time equivalent or consultant support, would be needed for the upfront effort to establish the street-by-street lighting plans.
Council discussed the issue for almost 30 minutes.
I would like to move to postpone this evening so that we can, staff can continue to work with, return to those DTE and say that this is a community priority that they should not be charging us for.
We heard people speaking, comparing comparing this change to what they are experiencing now. The change that is proposed is less bright than what they are experiencing now. Most of the LED lights in the city that DTE manages are between 64 and 69 watts. I see head shaking, so...
The brightness of an LED bulb could be brighter at a lower wattage. And so it's using less energy, but it could be brighter. So that's the difference in, so just because the wattage is lower does not mean that it is less bright or intense.
I think it is extremely important to understand how dramatic or not the proposed change actually is, because it has been presented as significantly dramatic, and it may not be.
Council voted unanimously to postpone approval of the grant and purchase agreement with DTE for new LED streetlights. Council briefly considered a contract with consultant Sam Schwartz to provide engineering and support services necessary to fully plan and design quick build and speed management projects in the city. The contract for $1 million will be funded primarily from the Climate Action Millage. The projects include green paint, centerline hardening, curb extensions, rubber speed bumps, and bollards at various corridors and intersections. The projects are intended to reduce speeds for safer crossings and benefit vulnerable road users such as walkers and bikers. These changes were first funded in the 2022 annual budget from amendments proposed by Councilmember Erica Briggs. One budget amendment allocated $300,000 to quick build projects at 3 locations. Another budget amendment removed $130,000 in funding for streetlights in order to implement centerline hardening and slow turn wedge treatments. These treatments have now been implemented at 7 locations, with plans for more. Last month, the city reported the results of a public survey about these quick build projects. Feedback was solicited via on-site signs, inviting travelers to share comments online. In response to specific questions, between 39 and 79% of vulnerable road users found the quick build changes to have no effect or make things worse. Among all road users surveyed, 57% were either neutral or dissatisfied. Council discussed the contract with Sam Schwartz for about 3 minutes.
I know that some have been pushing very hard to see those flex posts that will come in on our bike lanes. I guess I encourage staff to, they mentioned in the agenda response questions that there might be an opportunity to do the flex post, move that earlier and have those put in the spring of of 25, and I think that's something that I would hope that staff would really strive for in terms of this work plan. We've been waiting for a long time.
And I would just like to echo Councilmember Briggs in asking us to bring whatever portion of this work forward as soon as possible.
Council unanimously approved the $1 million contract with Sam Schwartz to engineer, plan, and design more quick-build projects. Council considered final approval for a zoning amendment requested by the developer of Southtown at State and Stimson. This parcel was rezoned in 2023 with a requirement that there be no natural gas connections. The developer has requested an amendment to zoning that will remove the prohibition on natural gas connections and instead set targeted goals for reduced carbon intensity. Earlier in the evening, public commenters spoke to the issue.
I don't know if any of you, besides Councilmember Dish, saw the May 7th Planning Commission presentation by Heidi Posher on the Southtown project. This plan could conceivably get to zero carbon. At least we'll know because they'll be accountable. That's in contrast to most developers, except for Heidi and Marge Posher, who I don't know, and Matt Grokoff and Matt Selby. I've never heard a single developer here take any responsibility for climate change whatsoever.
Council discussed the amendment for about 5 minutes.
This is an innovative project on the cutting edge of a rapidly changing field of energy technology, and proof of that is that we are looking at a zoning change already before it has broken ground. Concerns have been raised about underreporting of emissions associated with methane fuel generated by agricultural dairy farming. Industrial agriculture will be happening, but we are in a time of transition. So what do you expect?
I think that this project has a lot of innovative aspects in particular, and I'm looking forward to learning from it.
I'm excited to have this project move forward and grateful for the work done by petitioner.
The amended zoning was approved unanimously. Without discussion, Council unanimously approved 2 annexations. Parcels at 2862 and 3801 Stone School Road, currently in Ann Arbor Township, will be annexed into the city. Council then considered approval of a Business Improvement Zone, or BIZ, to be established at State and Eisenhower, adjacent to and including Briarwood Mall. Property owners in this area have petitioned for the creation of this entity, which can collect annual assessments from within the district to fund improvements. Earlier in the evening, commenters spoke to the issue.
I'm Jeff Hauptman with Oxford. This is a photo of Eisenhower. Those little yellow dots, dandelions, covered with weeds. Okay? But it's probably better than the asphalt-covered medians along State Street. You choose. We can do better.
Approving the petition will allow the local property owners to rally together toward an enhanced experience for the residents, shoppers, and workers.
Council praised the plan for about 5 minutes.
This is exactly the type of innovative change we're looking for that really supports the redevelopment and the transformation that I expect we'll see in this area over the next few years.
I'm very excited about this. As has been observed, this particular gateway to our city has many opportunities for improvement.
Council unanimously approved the establishment of a State Street Business Improvement Zone. There will now be a vote among all property owners in the zone. The BIZ will move forward if it receives 60% support. Council then considered an amended development agreement for Southtown in light of the amended zoning terms. Staff explained changes to the development agreement.
The agreement also includes B22, which states that after January 1st, 2035, the fuel cell must be operated with green hydrogen if commercially available, and if not with blue hydrogen if available, and if not with RNG. As soon as commercially viable, the developer must transition to hydrogen power and carbon capture technology. 26 discusses the carbon offsets and the characteristic of those offsets that the petitioner would have to purchase if they miss the mark in the 60 to 75% reduction. And this is really important because those are the values that you see in the energy criteria and characteristics that Council adopted.
Council unanimously approved the amended development agreement for Southtown. Council then considered a rezoning of nearly 28 acres on Nixon Road at the Owl Creek apartment community. The rezoning from R4A to R4D will permit the expansion of Owl Creek with a 5-story building and an additional 131 apartment units. After a brief introduction, the rezoning was approved unanimously at first reading. At a future meeting, this rezoning will be the subject of a public hearing and voted on for final approval at second reading. Finally, Council considered a resolution directing the city administrator to ensure that the police department is trained in preventing and responding to hate crimes. Council made statements in support for less than 10 minutes.
As a community that prides itself on being inclusive and welcoming to all, we cannot stand by and allow such acts of hate to persist. Our local law enforcement plays a pivotal role in this endeavor, working tirelessly to protect our community and uphold justice.
It's an affirmation of our values as council members, that this is something that we're very concerned about happening in our community.
I agree, this is an important resolution. As others have noted, hate and extremism is on the rise across the United States.
As those things take place, making sure that our training is up to date and continuing to be on the forefront is critically important. And
we have to be making sure we're up to date in all the ways we combat hate crimes. And I think there's always that attention on response and especially healing in the community, because we know that these events can just cause broad-based feelings of essentially insecurity and unwantedness, perhaps.
The resolution was approved unanimously. The meeting adjourned before 9:45 p.m. with no further public comment. For more details about this meeting, visit A2Council.com.
Welcome to this week's A2Council Moment of Zen.
The most common of these fall in the 64 to 49 watt range. There are 822 of those. The next most common fall in the 120 to 157 watt range. There are 207 of those. Currently, there are just 4 29-watt LED lights in the city, and those are from the demonstration project. If this proposal goes through, then all of the replacement lights will be at a lower wattage and color temperature than what we have now.
Councilor Rodina.